Everybody, I'm Jennifer Seger and welcome back to my channel, The Seger Stories. Today is just a quick video. I wanted to show you how I make my salsa. I kind of adapted this recipe over the years, learned it from a friend of mine way back in college, and it's kind of the thing I'm famous for, bringing to different potlucks, and it's a super easy summer recipe that is definitely a crowd pleaser. So let's get started. So I got a dozen Roma tomatoes. I just picked these up at Walmart. They are firm, but I can squeeze in a little, and they feel pretty heavy. So I think they are ripe. I actually put them in the fridge when I got them home. Typically, you do not want to refrigerate tomatoes, but in this case, they were so close to being overripe, and I knew it was going to be a couple days before I used them, so I kept them in the fridge, hopefully stopped the ripening process a little bit. Next up, I have some regular white sugar and regular table salt. I think this is actually sea salt, with a little bonus pepper that fell in there, but that's okay. And I have a couple limes. I have 3 Anaheim peppers. Again, all of this has been washed. I have 3 jalapeno peppers. And then I have 2 yellow bell peppers. You can use any kind of bell peppers. I like yellow or orange or maybe one of each because it gives the salsa a fun kick of color. But you could use red or green too. It really doesn't matter for taste. Next up, I have cilantro. And again, I purchased this the other night, and I just picked it up at Walmart. When I bring cilantro home, I put it in a little glass like you would put flowers in a vase. And I think that this keeps it fresh a little longer. And then like that plastic bag I just took off, I cover it with that loosely, and it kept really well in the fridge just for a couple days. I have 1 red onion. And then my equipment, of course, I have a bowl to put my salsa in. The salsa will not fill this bowl completely, but I want to have room to stir. I have, as Rachel Ray would say, a garbage bowl, a knife, cutting board, and then, of course, I have my chopper. I will be using a lot for this salsa. And if you've visited my channel before, you may have seen this in other videos. I am a huge fan. I will link this below. I get it on Amazon. But it has a really nice grid, so everything comes out consistent, super easy to use. Okay, so that's all of our ingredients. Let's get started and make some salsa. So you can really do your ingredients in any order, but I always start out by chopping my onion, and I think I just like to get it out of the way, especially if it's a strong onion. You can really tear up. So I just start by cutting off the ends, and then you probably only need to take off the skin, but I've always been in the habit of removing that first full layer of onion. I don't know why, but get all that taken off, thrown in the garbage bowl, and then I just cut it into slices. That yellowy part in the middle, you can take it out. I just left it in this time around, and then I sent all those slices through the chopper, and you can see it makes it really nice and even. So I got my full onion processed through there, and then just added that as the first ingredient in my salsa. And then I moved on to the peppers. These are Anaheim peppers, and it's kind of funny because I usually do my weekly grocery pickup from Walmart, and every time I'd type in Anaheims, they wouldn't show up, but we actually ended up having to go in the store, and I found them right away. So I don't know what they're called online, but anyway, in the store, they were labeled Anaheim peppers. But I start out by just slicing them in half and then removing that membrane. The more membrane that you leave with the pepper, the spicier your salsa will be. So because these were kind of the second hottest pepper that I was working with, I did try to get most of the membrane out because I knew that my recipe was going to go to people that didn't so much like spice. I like a little bit of spice, but not a ton, so I do try to take most of that membrane out. And once you get the membrane removed, and you can scrape the seeds because the seeds will add quite a bit of heat too, so try to get all the seeds scraped in the bowl. Then you just need to cut your peppers into more manageable pieces so they'll fit through the chopper. So I got my Anaheims all ready to go, just sliced up smaller, and then I was ready to start on the bell pepper. And my bell peppers had been hanging out in my fridge for a little while, so they were a little older, had some seeds, not super easy to cut, but I usually have better luck just cutting off all four sides, kind of treating it like a square. And there's a little bit left over on the bottom, but I had a pretty big bruise down there, so I didn't mind this time around, but you can try to make use of that bottom part as well. And then the same thing with the bell pepper. I'm not too worried about seeds and membrane here, but I try to get rid of them as much as I can, especially the seeds, because you don't want those just floating around the salsa. And then just made quick work here of getting through the jalapenos. Again, the spicier the pepper, the more membrane and seeds I focused on getting out of the way. And if you like a spicier salsa, sometimes I will add some Serrano peppers as well, just 2 or 3 little Serranos, and get those chopped up. Same number of jalapenos. I don't skimp on the other peppers, just adding the Serranos will give you a little bit more spice. So after you've gotten all that done and your peppers are in manageable pieces, you can just run them through the chopper. I have mentioned this before in my videos. I will link it below. I love, love, love this chopper. And it's kind of funny because whenever I make the salsa, I remember that once I convinced a coworker that I was just a perfectionist and had done this all by hand. So if you want to try that joke, see if you can get away with it. And as I'm getting the peppers added to the bowl, I just give it a quick stir between each addition so you get it kind of mixed together. Okay, so we got the onion and pepper in. It is time for the tomato, and I'm using this little tool. It's meant for strawberries, but they do make one that's also meant for tomatoes, and it's super easy to core the tomatoes. I use Roma's for the salsa recipe, and they don't give out a lot of juice, which is why they're really great for this. And actually, I go to pains to kind of get rid of some of that juice, so it's just the membrane or the outside of the tomato that stays with me. And if you're watching this and thinking, oh my gosh, you need new knives, I was thinking the same thing as I was cutting it because it was really getting difficult to go through tomatoes, and I should have been using a serrated knife because I know that those generally work better. But I'm just getting kind of all the, I guess we'll call it coring, the tomatoes cored and then quartered and set off to the side. I tend to do things in batches as I'm doing the salsa, chop all of this or get it, down to a point and then move all to the chopper and move all to this and kind of section it out, and it makes it a little bit easier. So there are all my tomatoes. I used about a dozen. You can use 10 to 12 here. Got them all peeled, and now it is time to dry them out, I guess. I try to get all that liquid, that juice, keeping some of the membrane in, but it's okay if you peel it away. So just get all of that slimy, juicy stuff put in your garbage bowl so you just have the tomato membrane left, and then you'll run all of that through the chopper just like you did with the peppers. And after you add your tomatoes, give it a good stir together. That is it for the chopper, but we do have a few more ingredients left to add so we can turn this into just a big pile of peppers and tomatoes to some really, really delicious salsa. Okay, our next step is cilantro, and I like to wash this right when I get it home, and you see how I store it in the fridge. And I do that so the leaves aren't wet as I'm trying to take them off the stems and they don't stick to my fingers, because that can be annoying. And a kitchen shear or scissors is your absolute best friend right now. You can lay it down on the cutting board and chop, but I like to put it in a bowl and then just go to town snipping away until it gets down to a nice minced consistency, and then throw that in your salsa bowl. And I know cilantro can be a love it, hate it thing. Some people think it's spicy, some people think it's soapy, so you can totally leave that ingredient out. My next step were the limes. I had a tough time recording how I roll the limes on the counter, but really I do that just to get the juices flowing, and then cut them in half and just squeeze them out over the salsa. You can use this tool I picked up at IKEA, or honestly just the back of a spoon works really, really well. All you're trying to do is get something to aid you in getting as much juice out of the lime as possible. And the last couple of ingredients we're gonna add are a tablespoon of salt and a couple tablespoons of sugar. This is how I do it. This is really to taste, but you wanna get salt and sugar in there because especially the sugar will bring out the juices of the tomato over time, and it'll make it more of a salsa feel, and you'll see those juices start to settle and meld together with the flavors. It's really, really good. Okay, so we are done. Now the last step is the taste test. Might I recommend that you get the Tostitos scoops because you need to pick up as much on the chip as you possibly can, and these are my fave. That is so good. Big bite. Now, I just got done making it. It's super yummy right now, but it's actually going to be really, really good after it sits for a few hours. I actually like somewhere between 6 and 8 hours. It's really, really good. The sugar and the salt mix in, so it gets everything a little juicier, and it's not just, right now it tastes more just like the chopped up ingredients, but as the flavors meld, it gets really good. This does last in the fridge, I would say between 2 to 3 days. Day 4, things are getting a little hairy, but I hope you try it on your own. Leave me a message in the comments and let me know how it goes, or if you try any variations or adaptations, or leave out that cilantro, which I know some people don't like, and the salsa does stand up without it, but I absolutely love it. So I'd love to hear how things go for you. If you did like this video, please click the thumbs up below, and I'd also love it if you subscribe to my channel. And that's it for today, so I'll see you next time.